Hey guys, Chris from Propel here, and today we're going to be checking out a new Tern HSD, specifically the Tern HSD S11. This is a bike that actually I think a lot of people were kind of asking for. It's an HSD speed bike. This is the first speed bike from Tern specifically. It's only available in certain markets. It is available here in the US as well as New Zealand. And it's a 28 mile an hour Tern HSD. S11 means that it has a derailleur, more specifically 11-speed derailleur. So a traditional derailleur and cassette. This one has a Deore XT. I'm getting this bike a little bit early and I'm making this video before we can actually publish it. But I hope to go through some of the different details and give you guys a bit of an overview of it. And yeah, I think a lot of people are really gonna like it. So the HSD is kind of a compact cargo bike, could be considered like a midtail, I don't know. It's kind of this mix in between these different genres of bikes. It's a compact bike, which is actually about the same length of a traditional bike, maybe just slightly shorter. But it has all these extra capabilities. It can carry up to 130 pounds on the back of it. So right now it's set up to carry a small child or more medium-sized child, even a small adult for that matter. But you can set it up with all sorts of different child seat attachments. It will accommodate more a maxi seat in the rear. There are some other seats that will work as well that are maybe more widely available in different markets, but the maxi is the one that's most popular here in the States. It's also possible to fit what's called the captain's chair. The captain's chair is made to fit a small child. Not as much security as you'll find on that child seat, but gives you some flexibility there. And then there's actually some products that are available in some other markets, and we're hoping that eventually they come here. At the Junior, it's kind of the smaller seat that can fit back there as well. Sometimes people find different ways to import them in, or some similar ones. But yeah, having that weight capacity in the back is something particularly unique about the HSD, and all the different accessories that are available for it. I mean, this has some added onto it right now. It has these cargo hold 37 panniers in the rear, and this rack setup in the front. But there's all sorts of different rack setups as well. This one can carry about 40 pounds, but there's a larger rack called the transporter rack. That one carries around 40 pounds as well, but a little bit larger platform. You could put like a milk crate up there, that sort of thing. Some other things that are kind of unique about the HSD: fits all different rider heights, fits anyone from the high 4 foot, like kind of low 5 foot range, upwards of 6+. So that's a really nice thing, especially a lot of times people might like to share bikes between couples or friends or whatnot. And having a bike that's very flexible is nice. You have these handlebars which are adjustable, and you can lean them forward or bring them back. And then you have the adjustable saddle height, which is telescoping, so you can get a lot of height there. And you could drop it down pretty far if you wanted to as well. One thing I should note for really shorter riders, some of the different attachments might not work as well for shorter riders. Specifically, this bike comes with a suspension seat post, so the minimum saddle height is not quite as low as it normally would be, because you have this extra 3 or so inches here. So something to be mindful of. Really easy step through frame, suspension fork, but we'll get more into these details in just a moment. But I wanted to give you a general overview of what's special about the HSD and really Tern in general. Tern is their heritage is really folding bikes, so they have a lot of experience with compact bikes, folding bikes, and it's kind of a challenging thing to do actually. And I think they were very well suited to get into the electric bike space, and now they're becoming more of like a mobility company, having all these different options. And I think to have the option of a high-speed bike just extends the range of people that they might be able to serve with their product range. And let's get into more of the details here. So when it comes to a lot of the parts, many things are pretty similar between this HSD and some of the others. You're going to have the same tires on here. They're 20-inch by 2.15 Big Ben. So decent amount of puncture protection there, and they got a pretty good tread there, so it's good for some light off-roading, but primarily on-road riding. I think that's where most people are going to use this. You have a through axle up front, which is the same on all the HSDs, but something maybe not as common on bikes in general. It's common on mountain bikes, but they chose this, I believe, just because it's a stronger setup. And a lot of the parts on the bike actually would probably be more commonly found on mountain bikes specifically, but really fitting on this type of bike that maybe can go a little bit faster, climb bigger hills, that sort of thing. Suntour Mobi A32 fork. It's the same fork that you'll find on the other HSDs, and it's a coil spring fork. Pretty heavy duty, and they chose coil spring, I believe, to some extent because the way that it's pretty flexible and pretty low maintenance. With the air spring fork, there's a little bit more involved in keeping up with that. So I think this is a really good setup there, and it's one of the few 20-inch suspension forks, and more specifically a quality one at that. So as I mentioned before, this bike does have some added accessories on here, so you wouldn't normally see these lower foot pegs, and if you are using these foot pegs, you would generally either want to use side skirts, but because this is set up with the bags, which I just lifted up for this purpose so you can see the drivetrain a little bit better, but you want something that's going to protect the kids' feet from this area because that could otherwise be a bit dangerous. So the derailleur on here is a Deore XT. Pretty premium stuff, actually. It's 11-speed derailleur, and it's 11 to 36 cassette on there. Pretty good range of gears, and yeah, this is something that you'll find on kind of a more premium mountain bike specifically. So it's nice that they set this up, and especially having that bit of a wider range of gears is good for this faster motor. Now, as with the rest of the HSD lineup, you're going to see this Generation 3 Bosch motor on here, but this one's a new one for Tern specifically, and a new one for Bosch for that matter. I mentioned it before, but this is the new Bosch Performance Line Sport, a 28-mile-an-hour motor, but it's in the Generation 3 platform. So you'll often have the 28 mile an hour in the Generation 4 platform. They have the Generation 4 Performance Line Speed as well as the Cargo Line Speed, which is in a slightly different form factor, slightly different performance characteristics, but this is really fitting for this bike. It's not quite as much torque as you'll find on the Generation 4, but it's really plenty. I mean, it's 65 Newton meters, really smooth, really easy to operate without power, and I think it's a good fit for this bike. But let's check it out from the other side because you can't see it as well here. But the one thing I did want to mention just before we go to the other side is the size of this chain ring. So you have a slightly larger chain ring on here to accommodate pedaling at those higher speeds, and that's something that's going to be somewhat unique here. But let's check it out from the other side. So you can see the form factor on here, pretty nicely integrated, and this is the Performance Line Sport. That Sport in this case annotates that it's the speed version. As I mentioned before, this particular motor system is only available in the US and New Zealand, where they have a little bit different regulations than other places in the world. So some other tech specs about this: it's 65 Newton meters of torque, 300% assistance. So that means at the top level of assistance, or the top assistance that you're going to get out of the motor, is 300% of what you put into it, which is pretty dramatic actually. The Bosch system, for those of you who might not know, it uses a technology called pedal assist, and basically it senses how fast, how hard you're pedaling, as well as how fast the bike is going overall, and based on all that information it provides assistance, and that assistance is going to vary depending on what assistance level you choose specifically. So you can get anywhere from around 60% assistance in the lower levels of assist and up to 300% assistance in the turbo mode, but there's 4 different levels. But you can also ride it off just like a normal non-electric bike. I should also note that the Bosch system is very advanced in the way that it senses, in that it takes 1,000 senses per second. So with that, it's able to provide a very smooth experience and very intuitive. And I think most people that ride it find it to be really one of the best. That's my personal opinion. It is the best system on the market. And it's just super reliable, really easy to use, very intuitive. And I like that the pedal assist really encourages you to pedal. It doesn't just like fully take over. I mean, if you ride in the high level assistance, you don't have to work very much at all, but the thing is you're always pedaling, which is cool. So the battery on here is the Bosch Powerpack 500, so 500 watt hours of power. It's specifically 36 volts, 13.6 amp hours, which that's how you get the 500 watt hours, or somewhere around there actually. But you can charge the battery on the bike or off the bike. If you wanted to charge it on the bike, you can charge it through this port here. I believe this bike does come with a 4 amp charger, up a little bit larger from the smaller 2 amp charger that some of the other models come with, but you know, it just makes it charge a little bit faster. You can see the battery charge indicator by just hitting this button, which actually will end up turning the bike on. Basically, you can see that it's just got two bars of life there, but 2 out of 5. And you can also see that on the screen as well. You can charge it on the bike, but if you wanted to, you can also charge it off the bike. And you would use the supplied key. Now, this little part here is what's called a cafe lock or a frame lock. And on the other side is the key. So when we turn this to lock it, we can remove the key. You can't remove the key without it being locked, but something to be mindful of. But if you wanted to, you can remove the battery. So you just stick the key in. Actually, I'm going to just twist it like this, I think, and just rotate the key, and you could pull the battery up like this. So the battery will pull out like that. As I mentioned, you can charge it off the bike through this port here. And yeah, it usually takes about 4 hours or so to charge. Could take a little bit longer if it's really fully empty. In order to reinsert the battery, you just put the bottom in first, then put the top in. You don't actually need to have the key in to put the battery back in. And I actually like to remove the key before putting the battery back in, because you want to make sure that you hear this audible click when you push it down. So if you just hear that there, just a little click to let you know that it's fully locked in place. But I'm gonna put this key back in place. I should note that this cafe lock, there's also a chain that you can insert. That's like a aftermarket part that's made by Abus, who makes the lock there. So that is an option if you wanted to, you know, just have a little extra security. I wouldn't trust it in, you know, less secure areas on its own, just with that lock in this. But it's good if you're, you know, maybe in a scenario like this, you're at a park and the bike is within your sight, but you just want to lock it to something. Not a bad way to go. We have this cash box, which is installed on here. I think that's one of the cool things about the Tern accessories. They just have like loads of different options. You could really outfit the bike to fit your needs, to whatever they may be. And they really maximize the real estate that they had available, because, you know, otherwise, what would you put in here? It's just going to be empty space. But the nice thing is you have this here, and you're not, you know, impeding on your otherwise very valuable cargo space in the rear bags or the front rack, that sort of thing. So just that attention to detail, I think it's really nice, and Tern does an excellent job there. So the display on this bike is the Bosch Purion display. It's a compact display, really fitting for this bike, particularly since the handlebars fold down, and I think you don't want something that's going to get bumped around and stuff like that. It's really set up for that. It's one of the most common uses for it is mountain biking, but it works for this purpose really well. But to turn it on, you're just going to tap the power button on the top here, and then it just takes a couple seconds for it to turn on there. You'll see the miles per hour or kilometers per hour, depending on where you're located. By default here in the States, it's going to be off, so no assistance, riding just like a normal non-electric bike. And then you show the battery level here on the bottom here. It's 2 bars. And then you can change through some of the different options here. So you can change the assistance level, which is probably the most common thing you're going to want to do, just by hitting the plus and minus button. So if you hit the plus button once, you get into eco mode. I think it's about 60% assistance. Tour mode is 140%. Sport mode is, I think, 240%. And turbo mode is 300%. That's the top level of assistance. If you want to see some different information from the bike, you can hold the minus button down for a couple seconds. We have the tripometer. If you wanted to reset the tripometer, you just hold the plus and minus button down for a couple seconds and you reset that. That'll also reset the range information as well. So we're just going to hold this down for a couple seconds. You go to total. This is your odometer. You can't reset that. That's going to actually, that information stays with the motor. Hold the minus button down again. You have 23 miles of range, and that's based on what assistance level you're in. So if you change to the highest level of assistance, turbo, it shows 8 miles of range, but really with the fully charged battery, you're probably looking at 25, 30 miles, even in the highest level of assistance, and probably upwards of 75 miles or so in the lower levels of assistance. So I think that's one thing that's cool about this motor specifically too, the Gen 3. Because it's a little bit less torque, you're going to be a little bit more efficient and maybe not use as much power. So even as a speed bike, you're probably going to see a higher range than you might see on a Generation 4 motor. So that's kind of cool. There's a couple other functions you'll find on the display. If you hold the plus button down for a couple of seconds, that's going to activate the headlight. And you do have a switch on the headlight, but the tail light, there's no switch. So one of the more recent updates from Bosch is that the light will stay on the last option that you left it. So if I turn this off and then I turn it back on, in theory, the light should still be on, like that. So, but if you left it off, you know, it's going to be different there. So, and as you might have noticed, that it went back to having no assist again, so that's going to be the default setting there. The one other detail I want to show you on the display is walk assist. So in order to enable walk assist, which is just this like pushing mode, basically it just pushes the motor along at like 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour. You need to be in a specific assist level in order to activate it. So you can choose eco or really any assist level. It doesn't really make all that much of a difference. But you have the assist level on, and then there's a little button down here. So you're going to tap that button and then hold the plus button. And that's going to activate the walk assist. So these are Ergon GC1 grips, really comfortable. The bike has a nice swept back handlebars, and these grips are very fitting for that. It's an ergonomic grip, so it provides more support than you might find in a normal, just like round grip. So it kind of spreads the pressure throughout the palm of your hand as opposed to just cutting straight across as you might find with the normal grip. This, as far as comfort, is one of the upgrades that I recommend all the time if a bike doesn't come with it. But I find that a lot of the quality bikes, they do choose to spec these even though they do cost a little bit more than a standard grip. For the brake levers, we have the Magura MT5. This is a hydraulic disc brake, really powerful, something you're going to find generally on a more premium mountain bike. It's a 2-finger lever, and it does have adjustable reach, so you can really dial it in to whatever your hand size is. You know, the default is pretty fitting for me, but if you wanted to push it in a little bit further, there's a screw that you can tighten or loosen. You can adjust that reach there, but really nice feel to them. And you can also adjust the angle, but this is a pretty good angle. You want to just be able to grab them easily. And then for the shifter, we have Shimano Deore XT, same as the derailleur. It's a rapid fire shifter, and you can push 3 gears this way and 1 at a time this way. Generally speaking, you're not going to want to shift the gears while you're pedaling, but I just shifted them just to show you in this example and then corrected it. But you'll have this lever is going to go to a higher gear as if you're going faster, and then this is going to go to a lower gear as they're easier to pedal, that sort of thing. So we'll just get it back to where it was there. For the brake calipers, we have the Magura MT5, which is a little bit of boost up from some of the other HSD models, a little bit more stopping power. We have quad pistons, so 2 pistons on either side, and a little bit more like modulation with the levers, 180 millimeter rotors front and rear, really plenty of stopping power. I'd feel very comfortable going fast and stopping fast as well, which is something that's necessary on this type of bike. So as I said before, you have the light is switchable up here, and you can adjust the angle of it. This is their proprietary light here. And the tail light will always be on when the lights are turned on, but you have that option with the headlight here. So as I mentioned before, one of the really nice details about the HSD is all the adjustability. You do have the ability to fold the handlebars down, but really more specifically what I want to show here is the ability to adjust the handlebar angle. So you can adjust it if you want to be very upright and pull the handlebars towards you, or maybe you're a shorter rider, you want those handlebars closer to you. You can do that by pushing it this way. Or maybe you want to ride in a more sporty forward position. You can push the handlebars forward this way, and then you'll want to readjust the angle of the grips and everything, get that dialed in, and then just clamp these back in place. So you have a lot of flexibility. I know a lot of times people reach out to us sometimes, and it's a husband or wife or something, and they're sharing a bike, and one might be like 5 foot or lower, 5 foot range, and then the other might be in the high 6 foot range. This is the sort of thing that really makes this bike a lot more flexible to fit different rider heights, which is really nice. For the seat post here, as I mentioned before, this one specifically has a suspension seat post. This is the new Thudbuster ST for short travel. This is something that you're just going to find on the HSD S11. The other HSD models don't have a suspension post. But this also has these sidekick bars, which are made to carry a passenger. So you wouldn't generally find this by default, but this is a nice option if you did want to carry a small child or well, I should say a larger child or a smaller adult for that matter. Really, it's about the weight limit on the back. But you have a lot of adjustment to the height here. You have these, they call it a telescoping seat post. So basically you have the lower posts, which you can go here. You see these X's in this line. You don't want to pass that. That's a minimum insertion point. You need that minimum insertion so you don't have, like, if the post is all the way up here, it might create like a lot of leverage and it could potentially break the frame. So just be really careful about that. So that's the minimum insertion. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how far up this thing could really go. Hopefully we don't go out of frame here, but I'm gonna just pull this up, and that's the top there. So at that point, I mean, this is the like 6'6" sort of rider here. I mean, my normal seat height would probably be like round about here. So we got another 8 or so inches up from my 5'9" height. So that's quite a bit there. Considering this is a compact bike, it's pretty cool that it can fit some taller riders, and I know a lot of people feel pretty comfortable there. The thing I should note, if you are a really tall rider, you might want to consider Tern does have the option to do a taller mast for the handlebars up front. So if you wanted to have the handlebars up a little bit higher, you have that option. But really comfortable saddle. Again, this is their own product that they set up for this bike, and I think it's pretty fitting. It's just sporty enough, but still really comfortable. And I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. So I just want to get into a couple more features, and I think we'll wrap it up. So I wanted to just talk a bit more about the frame specifically. I guess one thing I should call out is the color. This color is called Tundra. I think it's like teal. I mean, I'm colorblind. I think you guys might know that. I don't know if you do, but yeah. I can still see color, but it's just, I guess I see different color. Somebody says that, I say the wrong color and you guys see the right color. I don't know. I say that I see the right color and you guys see the wrong one, but who knows? This is the same color that they had in the S8i, and it's really popular, so I think people are gonna really like it too. I mean, I like it. I think I would choose this like over black or something like that. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, all different like attachment points. So you can attach like a lock or water bottle cages or whatever. You know, even like the racks have extra attachment points. Speaking of racks, I should just talk a bit more about this rear rack. As I said before, you can accommodate up to 130 pounds on the rear rack here, but there's some other functions that are kind of special with this as well. All sorts of attachments. You can put like a big platform on here. It's called a short bed tray. You can put the captain's chair, which is good for like kind of a medium-sized child, not for a really small one. For that, you're probably going to want to put them in a child seat. But one of the cool things about when you run a child seat on the back here, you can also run bags, which in a normal bike, generally, you might not have the weight rating to be able to carry a child seat and bags, but more so, you probably generally don't really have the room to do that. But the other thing that's kind of unique about this rack is that it has this ability to stand up on its rear end. So basically, I just put the kickstand up, and I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna hold the rear brake and just stand it right up like this. So the ground is not so straight here, so hopefully it'll still hold, and it does. Another nice function for storage, specifically maybe you might want to put it like in a closet or keep it behind your door. That's what Tara does with her GSD. Don't go finding Tara's GSD. But yeah, basically you just fold this, there's a little safety latch here, and you can fold this down. Now, you are going to want to just put the handlebars around like this, and we can just fold it down. Once you do that, there's a little strap to hold this in place, and you don't really have to stretch it very hard. You just get the first loop that it will grab. This works well also if you wanted to put it like inside of a van or SUV. Having those handlebars folded down gives you a little bit more flexibility. And you know, there you have it. There's a HSD. I think that we went through pretty much everything there. And yeah, I'm excited to get some more saddle time on this thing. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed checking it out with you. I mean, I think this bike's gonna be really popular. I really like riding it. I think that this new Bosch Performance Sport motor is really pretty special. And yeah, if you have any experience with the previous version or another version, I should say, of the HSD, you know, leave some comments. Let people know. I know a lot of people like really love these bikes. I'm a big fan. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, leave them below, and we'll be happy to help. Or maybe somebody else will answer your comments. We encourage that. Sometimes it's tough to get to all the comments, but I do my best. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you in a future video. Well, see you soon. Yeah, I'm gonna just take this for the ride. All right. Yep.